Okay. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for being here this morning. My name is Wooly, and my pronouns are he and him, and I am a very grateful member of your Board of Trustees. This town hall is an important step in our shared work of shaping the future for our congregation. In just a few weeks, on December 7th, we'll gather again for our formal congregational meeting, where we'll vote on several key matters that affect our ministries: updates to our bylaws, the slate of our nomination committee, our budget and staffing plans, and our continued ability to live our values in the wider world. Today is about preparation, conversation, and clarity. Unitarian Universalism is built on the practice of shared governance. That means we don't simply present you with a finished plan and ask for a yes or a no. Instead, we come together in settings like this to ask questions, to listen, to share concerns and hopes, and to deepen our understanding of the realities that we face. Your voices matter, not as a formality, but as a vital part of how we discern our path forward. This morning, we'll walk through what's coming up, provide context for considerations from the board and staff, and leave plenty of time for your questions and comments. You don't need to have all the answers. That's why we're here together. We simply ask that we engage one another with curiosity, respect, and a generous assumption of good intent. Our hope is that by the end of this town hall, you'll leave feeling more informed, more grounded, and more confident about the decisions we'll be asked to make at the congregational meeting. Thank you for showing up, for caring about this community, and for taking part in the shared responsibility of governance. With that, let's begin.
Good morning. I'm Karen Hafer, pronouns she, hers, and I am your church treasurer. And I will get to share opening words by Eric Walker Wickstrom. As we approach our work here this morning, let us remember that we are doing the work of our congregation. When we do the work of our congregation, we touch lives. When we touch lives, we change the world. May this chalice flame we now kindle remind us through our meeting of our ministry, our mission, and at the center of all, our love.
Welcome to all of you, the people who make up this church. This meeting is designed to help you understand what will be presented for consideration and vote at the winter 2025 congregational meeting, including candidates for the nomination committee, bylaws revision, and the 2026 operating budget. For those who are newer to the church, we hold 2 congressional meetings per year, one in the spring and one in December. At these meetings, members of the Unitarian Church of Lincoln exercise our democratic process. This town hall is designed to give you the space to consider and ask questions. We will be outlining the voting process for the winter congregational meeting towards the end of the town hall. For those of you watching on YouTube, please put your questions to the live chat, and we will do our best to answer them. There's a little bit of delay between your typing and our reading. For those of you in the sanctuary, please raise your hand and our volunteer will bring the microphone to you. Or I'll repeat the question so it is heard by those watching online.
Hello. My name is Lori L. Stratman, and my pronouns are she, hers. And I am a grateful member. I love that term, Wooly. I'm a grateful member of the nominations committee, along with Joanne Lanning, Shelley Fowler, and Erica Berkey Rios. According to the church bylaws, the task of the nominations committee is to recruit candidates for church leadership positions to be elected by the congregation. On December 7th, a week from today, our congregation will be electing 2 new members for the nominations committee. I will be completing my term on the committee at that time. And I would like to thank all those individuals I've talked to about potential church leadership during my tenure on this committee. Your attention and consideration have been greatly appreciated. Today, it's my duty to introduce the candidates for the next 3-year term. The candidates have been members of our church for several years, and they are Priscilla Handy and Carrie Holloway. I do see that Carrie is here, and if Carrie would like to come forward and just introduce herself real quickly.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Carrie Holloway. I've been a member of the church since 2017, but active since 2016. I've been involved in several committees. I'm currently on the membership committee, Green Sanctuary, an Open Circle leader, adult programs, and program council. Are some of the things I've been involved with, and I think the theme that I've noticed about all of them is that I've been very welcomed, even when I didn't really know what I was doing or didn't have a whole lot of time to contribute. I always was awed by the expertise, generosity, and just caring of everyone that I've met. So if I am part of the nominating committee, I hope that I can encourage other people to be involved too, to support a great place, but also for the fulfillment that I've felt. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Carrie. And Priscilla appears not to be here today, not surprising. Priscilla has served for several years in important positions, including the Board of Trustees and Ministerial Search Committee. She also volunteers as one of the Office Dazzler team members, and she's well positioned to reach out to church members and invite them to become involved in church decision-making as well. I want to thank both our candidates for being willing to be candidates for the nominations committee. And for the congregation, you should note that both candidates have long-term institutional knowledge and access to a wide variety of church members. Kathy, you have a question. I'll repeat it. Right. So Kathy said that, for clarification, that these 2 candidates are for 2 open positions. They are not competing for a single position. We do currently have a vacant position, and we will have my position that are being covered by the 2 candidates. Thank you, Kathy. That was a good question. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, I am going to turn it over. Thank you for your attention.
Good morning. I'm Floyd Wickenkamp from the... All right. I'm Floyd Wickenkamp, Secretary of the Board of Trustees. I wanted to invite everybody to review the minutes from the spring congregational meeting. They're either available at the office or on the church website under the governance tab. They've been reviewed by myself and by Mary Summermeyer. If there's any inaccuracy, please let one of us know and we will make changes. Thank you.
Floyd,
Yes.
can those changes be brought next week, or do they need to be brought ahead of the meeting?
I think either way.
Okay.
Actually, they should be brought ahead of the meeting if possible.
Okay.
Preparing for the electronic voting requires us to be able to have everything packaged before we start.
So should we announce that people speak on the
You understand that?
We would prefer that any changes be brought forward before the congregational meeting so that they can be taken care of.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, my name is Michael Stratman, he, him, and we want to talk a little bit about our bylaws change. Now, after the conversation we had last week, we had some great input. Mary Summermeyer, as well as several others, came up and chatted about it. We were able to revise this to better fit the language already existing within the bylaws. So the new proposed bylaws change is section 6.12. Committees subject to the board. The board may create and discontinue committees that report directly to the board. Committee members serve at the discretion of the board. I want to be very clear that this change does not introduce a new practice. This simply formalizes what has long been both the current and historical way the board has operated. In our governance model, committees exist to support the work and responsibilities of the board. Over the years, the board has routinely created committees when needed, such as search committees or short-term working groups, and has dissolved them when their charge is complete. Adding this language to the bylaws helps us ensure clarity, transparency, and alignment between what our governing documents say and what we already do in practice. It is important to note that this change applies only to committees that report to the board. It does not affect the way committees or teams under the Program Council are created or managed, which are covered in another section of the bylaws. In short, this addition helps future leaders and members easily understand how board level committees are established, how they conclude, and that they operate under the oversight of the board just as they always have. This is simply a housekeeping update that strengthens our governance clarity without altering any of our actual operations. Any questions on that? And that is all up to you. I had many great suggestions, so appreciate that very much.
Okay, now we short people take over again. Okay, I'm Leslie Ryan. I've been asked to address the winter meeting, the voting procedures. Here's what you can expect at our winter congregational meeting. We will start the meeting around 11:30 after the service. The meeting will be in person and on YouTube live stream. The items we'll be voting on are the approval of the spring congregational meeting minutes, the candidates for the nominating committee, and the 2026 operating budget. We will also hear reports from our minister, the board president, our treasurer, and the program council chair. Before we discuss how voting will take place, are there any questions about what we've shared today and what we will vote on at the congregational meeting?
I didn't hear you address the bylaw change as something being voted on. So there's 4 things together, is that correct?
Will the minister, the board president, the treasurer, I don't think that's here just because last week it wasn't here.
Oh,
But
yeah,
we
the
will be
bylaws.
voting on the bylaws change.
Thank you.
Because of, okay, is that Sandra?
Yeah. I just had one question about the bylaws change. It's not the change itself seems fine, but which committees report to the board? There was examples, but I don't know if besides ministerial search, are there any other committees that report to the board currently?
Right Relations, I think, is one of them.
Well, right relations hasn't been
exist.
created yet, but we want to talk about that.
And I believe the personnel,
CSE.
the committee, the foundation's new name? Capital Investment Campaign Committee. Personnel Committee. So there are things that just don't fit into the program sort of thing. I don't know of any others, do you, off the top of your?
Those are the primary ones.
4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've had a few ad hoc ones in the past, but those are the ones that are currently standing.
And usually, if there's only good reason for it, Okay, any other questions? Okay, housekeeping. Because of our multi-platform format, not everyone will be in the sanctuary. To give everyone a voice, we'll be voting again online, as we've been doing for the past few congregational meetings. Immediately following the congregational meeting, you'll receive an email from the church with a link to the Google form ballot. If you need to update your email, please do so now by contacting the church office. There will be instructions on the Google form ballot on how to vote. Please follow those instructions closely. Once you are done with your voting, you will click the submit button and it will go to the church office for counting. For those who do not have electronic means of voting or who do not wish to vote online, we do have the option of a paper ballot. Please let the church office know. Only church members in good standing may vote. You will have 48 hours after the email to complete your voting. Results will go out in the Friday email blast after the meeting. So, any other questions regarding the voting process?
What defines good standing?
If you
What
have,
defines good standing?
if you have signed the, I have that, the membership book, that's, and wish to be part of the congregation. Oh,
It's 30 days. You have to have signed the book 30 days.
30 days
prior.
prior.
You must sign the book 30 days prior to the vote.
Thank you.
It's me. Hi. Again, I'm Karen Hafer, your treasurer for this couple of years. So for my report this morning, I decided to share with you the information that the Board of Trustees receives every month. They receive 3 pieces of information in relationship to where we are in our fiscal year: income, expenses, and pledges. So Harry, if you do the next slide. Thank you. This is the income slide. As you can see from the graph that we are at 87% of the way through our year, and our total income is at 103% of the amount budgeted. This means that we are in a very healthy financial place. We also know from past years that we do have a number of members who pay their pledge toward the end of December. We are seeing more consistent pledges coming in due to the practice of sending quarterly statements through the mail as well as electronically. Now, you may wonder why donations are so high, much higher than what was budgeted. Our church has received a very generous gift of $68,000 from the Bud Spidell family that remains in our checking account until it's transferred to the Capital Investment Committee to invest. And that is done toward the end of the fiscal year. But just for your information, we have also received a gift of $50,000 from the Maxey family, and they have bequeathed gifts of that same amount for the next 2 years. The auction and handmade harvest is under goods and service category, so it is a good time to report to you that the craft fair earned $4,307 for the church. Thanks to Judy Hart and her committee for doing such a great job. You can go to the expense slide. As of November 15th, at 87% of the year, our total expenses are at 86% of the budget. Committees continue to be doing a great job of keeping their spending within the amount budgeted. Finance activities are above budgeted due to an increase in insurance for staff. Supplemental expenses reflect the music and video licenses being paid. And our checking account, as of November 15th, was well funded at $217,910. In summary, our finances for 2025 are where they should be at this time of year. As a reminder, our fiscal year doesn't close until December 31st, 2025. If you have any questions or concerns, please let me or Elisa Hawk, the Vice Treasurer, know, and we will make sure we'll get you the answers. Thanks.
Can you just describe what does red mean and what does red mean and what does brown mean?
I'm sorry, it doesn't come out, does it? Okay, the red is where, what, the black is where we be for the budget. That shows the budgeting time of year. And the red is what they've spent.
Okay.
Sorry, I should have clarified that. Thank you, Gary.
Well, I wouldn't go too far there, Karen. So, as we talk about the budget for next year, we've prepared a little presentation about how this looks and what the major components of the parts of the budget we are proposing. If you are interested, and I think we've handed out copies of the spreadsheet, we will not be going through the spreadsheet line by line. Instead, we'll be talking about the changes here, but you're welcome to peruse that. You're welcome to ask questions of any of us through the process. Karen's wonderful about responding to emails at all hours of the day, so about how we're spending money. So next slide.
Okay, I get to remind you or let you know that this budget that you have in your hand or that you will hear about was not done overnight, obviously. Hopefully, you will know that. So I wanted to go through the process somewhat on how it was created. So in accordance with the finance policy, which states that by September, cluster leaders, and those are from the Program Council cluster leaders, provide their budget recommendations for the next year to the treasurer. This was actually done by committee chairs at the budget summit that was held in August 16th. So this whole process started on August 16th. The pledge drive then began in September. On October 3rd, at the board retreat, the board members were informed about parts of the budget, and then they took part in a $100 exercise, which indicated which areas of the budget were their priorities. The executive board, which is made up of the board president, the vice president, the treasurer, the vice treasurer, program council chair, and administrative director, with the minister also present, met on October 22nd to look at the first draft of the 2026 budget, which included the committee's requests as well as staff changes. At the end of this session, it was clear that we needed to take another look at each request. So the executive board met again on October 27th, and after over an hour and still having expenses exceeding income, each member of the executive board was asked in the next week to prepare a rough draft of our own sheet that indicated what we thought should be funded. On November 4th, the executive board met again and went over each line of the budget to refine the amounts. The result is what was taken to the Board of Trustees on November 11th for their approval. I must say, I have to say a huge amount of thanks goes to Michael for his leadership in this process, and also Jean, our administrative director, for all her research regarding staff hours, pay, benefits, insurance, all of that. So I do want to say this is a good time to say that 2026 pledges, we are still in need of people to pledge for 2026. And just a reminder that we no longer do rollovers. No, so everyone who wants to record a pledge for 2026, even if it's the same amount pledged, this is the same as this year, you still need to contact the church office by email, phone, text, or in person to let them know what you plan to pledge. It just won't automatically be put in your name. Thanks.
Thank you, Karen. So this year, it's what I like to call opportunities and challenges. with the opportunities we have, the pledge drive and all of you absolutely hit it out of the park. We have a 14.86 projected income growth with it almost totaling almost $27,000, a little over $27,000 in pledge increases. This is amazing, and I want to thank everyone who contributed to that success. Unfortunately, we did have some challenges. After the pledge team had already begun their work. As we all know, October is a great month for corrections that we see financially. One of the things that came out of that, we discovered an almost $15,000 payroll tax correction. There was a 27% increase in insurance and benefits. Now, this isn't just for us. I'm sure many of you have seen this at your own places of work or in your own households, but 27% increase hit us pretty hard. Obviously, the ministerial search is a huge component of what we're doing, as well as making sure we pay a decent ministerial wage. When we go out to advertise, what we certainly don't want to do is handicap the work of our ministerial search committee, but providing a low number that we might offer. We want to provide the best number we can possibly do, which is midpoint, what's called midpoint, as well as the recommended benefits suggested by the UUA. And there were also some minor utility increases across the board, again, as many of us have seen. So what were the results out of this? One of these was a focus on existing reserves. We have several pockets of money that belong to different groups. For instance, the grounds that I help with, Heather, has a pocket of money that we normally use to do things. If there's a windstorm, we take trees down. There are several $1,000s in that pocket. What we're asking groups with those pockets to use those at this time instead of adding to them in a line item fashion. We're looking at some alternate funding models. We had a number of lines that did not utilize historically the money allocated to them completely throughout the year. We looked a lot, Jean and Karen did a lot of work on saying, you know, we put $1,000 into this line every year and we spend about 150 of it. So what that does, by adjusting those for what is historically used, then we are able to free that money up for other purposes. There is no giant rollover at the end of the year for committees. If they don't use it, it goes back into the general budget. When we do not adequately allocate or realistically allocate for that, that locks that money up. So if there's $150 out of 1,000 use, that means that $850 use is essentially not able to be applied to any other function until the next year. So what we're trying to do by examining those historical models is make sure that we use the money that's being done. We're also looking at a CIC transfer, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. Next slide, please. So where does our money come from? No surprise, pledges make up 85% of our income. Facility use, only 4%. Auction, this is all the fundraising. This is not just the auction. This is Handmade Harvest. This is all of these things sort of bundled together. And we make up about 4% of there. Donations, 5%. We've had a couple significant donations from members over the last couple of years, for instance, the Bud Spidell estate and things like that. So that's a significant portion of our income. Next one, we look at where our money supports. Not surprising, staff salary is at 51%, staff insurance, pension, taxes are almost at 16%. You look at some of these others, and these are grouped a little bit, but things like Sunday services, which is one of the things we often think of as what we do with our money, is really only 1% of what we do. There's a lot of other things going on there. You can see properties is 8%, making sure that the sidewalk was scooped this morning before you came in. That's the grounds attention, the work we do to maintain the interior of the facility, all those sorts of things like that. Okay, next slide. So we had to focus with this shortfall on what we decided to prioritize. Those are insurance and benefits. We went through our entire budget line by line and said, what is a non-negotiable expense? And we considered our staff that non-negotiable expense. What insurance and benefits? How can we continue to provide what we're already providing to them? We also increased our staff hours for the youth educators. So as you remember, with Chelsea's retirement, we did some what we called right-sizing experimentation last year. We went with a 10-hour-a-week position to help fill things in. It was clear that that 10-hour-a-week was not sufficient. So we moved that up to 14 as much as we were able to within the budget without radically increasing our insurance and benefits costs. So that's where the number 14, I know it seems kind of weird, but that's where it comes in so we don't trigger a bunch more insurance costs. Obviously, the ministerial search and the wage are big ones. Some of the other budget priorities, we had a strong belief in paying our fair share. That was one of the things the board said over and over again. How do we make sure we pay our fair share? These are things like, what's that? Justice in Action, our UUA dues. But one of these was the LGBTQA committee. It became clear in looking at things at their budget requests that our dues to the Faith Alliance were not in our fair share range. So we wanted to make sure that we invested in that, that we were pulling our weight in those matters. And then the other is Soul Matters content. We use Soul Matters, whether that's from the pulpit, we use that in adult education, we use that all throughout the church. You will not see a line on the budget that says Soul Matters. It's broken out into a lot of different spaces where you'll see that cost. But that is an important cost to us to be able to continue to present a coherent message as we move through the church year. So those were some of our priorities. Next slide. As I mentioned, we're looking at some of these designated funds that we're asking groups to utilize for 2026. Youth Religious Education has almost a $5,000 reserve, social justice, about $6,000, same with grounds. And licensing, we're moving to some supplemental funding. So with that, we are taking these groups to zero when you look at that spreadsheet. Now, it looks really scary when you say, oh, we're no longer funding religious education. No, we're not putting any new money in. We're asking that they utilize reserves. So that's where you'll see the difference. These reserve amounts, these designated funds amounts, are not listed on the budget spreadsheet, right? Because the budget is what we're putting in this year to various groups. So that's why we wanted to make sure that we talked about this a little bit. Next slide. Special projects to consider. Some of these were groups that either had very little usage or had usage that we kind of wanted to rethink the model on. So we're trying something different for 2026 with these groups. There are funds, as we've seen, we get gifts, we have some donations like that, anniversary, that give us some flexibility to fund smaller ticket items. Then, of course, there are things that we set aside for major repair and replace, audiovisual big ticket items we already have set aside for funding. So instead of putting line item monies into these groups, we're taking that and zeroing those out, asking those groups to then approach the board about how we might fund those with this flex spending. Again, this is not a long-term approach. This is an experiment that we're trying with, and what the goal is here is to free up some of those funds during a year where we're kind of struggling to balance the budget based on this very large and very sudden insurance and benefits change we're looking at. Library bookstore is one. Audiovisual, many of the things that audiovisual spends fall into that major repair and replace. For instance, if we ever have a projector or a monitor or the board or something like that go out back there, that's something that it would not be covered even in the AV line. So we're asking that if there are needs in AV, to please just ask us and we'll see how we can fund those. Again, this is not a long-term model, but just for this year. The other is fellowship food. We were putting a fair amount of money in the budget into lines that were to have things like our cake after service or the baked potato bar or things like that. And we weren't fully utilizing those allocated funds. So again, we were just sort of setting funds aside and not using them all, which means we couldn't use them elsewhere. So what we're asking for this year is if a group wants to do fellowship food, to talk to the board or talk to the program council, and we will identify funding to do that. That way, the request can match what we're spending, rather as opposed to just having these chunks of money. This is not to say we're saying no paid food, right? This is what we're saying is that we're just trying to get a handle on what's being spent rather than soaking up a bunch of money sitting around in the budget. And the other is obviously major repair and replace, right? Rather than putting dribs and drabs into a budget line for things like this, we're just asking things to go to the board, most of which would already anyway. We do still have money in the building maintenance and supplies, so that doesn't affect needing a doorknob or paint or a light bulb or such like that. That is already covered in there. Next slide. So, talk a little bit about the CIC disbursement. One of the things that AJ has been talking about to us for a long time, almost as long as he's been here, is how do we expect to use our endowment / foundation / investment funds to offset operating expenses? That this was done throughout the UUA. And so we were like, well, that's a really great question. I mean, his job as interim is to ask the questions, right? Why do you do this, or how do you do this? So we started asking around a little bit. We talked to several others, First Unitarian in Omaha. I also talked with Sharon Dittmar, representing from the UUA, about, okay, so what is normative practice for a congregation of our approximate size with our approximate reserve fund? And the research shows about 4 to 5% is what's normative practice within the UUA. So we take 4 to 5% every year and roll it into the operating expenses. We are not suggesting to do this permanently, even though it is. Yes?
Can you clarify for persons that may not understand what CIC stands for?
Great. Committee or Capital Investment Committee. There we go. I'll remember that one of these days. Too many CIC acronyms in my experience here. So 4 to 5% is the number. We're suggesting doing that this year, with a conversation to follow about if we want to consider that as a long-term recurring practice. Yes?
What's the investment earning on the CIC? I mean, I understand taking 4 to 5% if we're earning, 5 to 6 to 7%. So what are we earning every year on the CIC? Are we attacking the corpus, or are we just taking interest income off?
Mark?
Charlie Ahern is the financial secretary of the committee, and I'm sorry I don't have the earnings, the percent. It has varied a lot. It's been going in very well for us in the last couple years. Currently, the total that we have invested, the total assets are $693,000. That was at the end of October. Yeah, so I can't give you a specific, month to month it's changed a lot, but it's definitely been more than we expected. Yes.
Last quarter, I thought we were looking at about the 6.5 range is where we experienced growth in the last quarter, if I remember correctly.
So we're not taking corpus?
Well, we will take more than what the interest was for the last year, yes.
We will. So, like I said, we're doing that. That's where we came up with that 5%, was basing it off of the suggestions from the UUA. We are also taking the 10K for the ministerial search, yay for the ministerial search team for giving us a good number. When we started this process, it was kind of a soft number, and we really needed a do not exceed price. It may cost less than this, but that's the number that we're going to try not to exceed in our ministerial search. We were talking to the CIC throughout this entire process as we began doing it, and we were trying to think about how we balance things. So we've been talking to them all along to doing that. And I want to emphasize again, we are not planning a constant take this year, beyond this year, out of the CIC. That's not what the vote about. It's just about this one time. A recurring practice, I think, requires more conversation, more discussion, and more debate if we were to consider to make this a normative practice for us. Okay, next one. So with that, I'll ask some of the people that can answer some of these questions. Come on up. Just a sec, Harry, let me get everybody up here first. You want to go ahead and come on up? I know Mark. Any of the board members, finance folks?
Yeah, Harry Hafer. He, him, I'm chair of the building committee, and those of you, I'm sure, are aware what great shape our parking lot is in. We've done some initial research, it's probably been a year ago now, on possible options. Roughly, at that time, $100,000, likely more now. And so that's going to be pursued more here after the first of the year. I'm envisioning involving others with the congregation in the conversation. You know, we tear it out, replace with concrete, or we do the company, contractor, does a whole lot of repair work and overlay asphalt. Pros and cons to both. Depends how you want to look at it. But that generosity from the Maxey family is something I think we need to be aware of and make sure we consider consider that the parking lot, in my opinion, at this point in time, unless something more happens to the building, knock on wood it doesn't, that's going to be a major priority. Ideally, maybe yet next year, but 2027 for sure really needs to be taken care of. Right. It's not a safe parking lot. And the other discussions with it, maybe adding a light by the Eldon Street ramp, because it is pretty dark over there at night, right at that spot. But just wanted to bring that awareness out to everybody.
Right.
That is really something that needs to be done.
That's a great example of one of those major repair and replace projects that we would want to individually consider their merit and versus the funding we have available. And you're certainly not the only one with these ideas. We had almost $90,000 of really excellent suggestions that we were unable to fund that came out of the board retreats and out of the program council budget palooza or what
Budget summit, yeah.
Budget summit, there we go. It was a fun event, and it was sad to say that there was almost 90,000 that we couldn't fund. But yeah, that's a great example of those things, major repair and replace that we'll have to prioritize against the available funding. Other questions?
Number one is that this is the first time I'd heard, perhaps my head was buried in the sand, which is possible, about not having the continuing pledges. Because I thought, normally if you didn't pledge at all up until this year, you just carry over into next year. Is that correct?
Well, that was a practice but even last year.
We haven't done rollovers for
Right.
3 years.
Right.
Well, okay. Geez, I wasn't aware of that. But I mean, I pledged more, so it doesn't affect me. But I mean, does everybody know this? Because I didn't.
We put it out in as many communication channels as we can.
I have more.
Yeah.
Right. We've tried to communicate as much as we can to let people know, and we've done phone calls to folks that we haven't heard from to pledge to say, hey, this is not a practice. I mean, I spoke to one and she was unaware too, and she just thought, well, if it just keeps coming out of my checking account, I should be. No, we really need to know the amount.
Right, and as co-chair of the pledge team, we tried to make everybody aware of this, and like Wendy said, this has been in play for 3 years now, so.
And if you've increased your pledge, then you don't have to worry about it because you've already done it.
I might not have.
The thing about putting in your pledge is that gives our folks who are making the decision making on how to put together the budget a more realistic number of what to expect. They cannot assume that your pledge is always going to be the same from year to year. And if they don't hear from you, we can only say, okay, so we cannot expect a pledge from this person. And that lowers the amount that we have to be able to budget.
Thank you. If you're going to answer my question, Elle, would you get in front of the camera so everyone at home can see you? But my question is, how is it working for us? How many pledges have we lost because folks assumed they were going to roll over? And how effective has it been to notify them individually that they need to make a positive statement?
I'm going to
of
ask
rollover?
Wendy to answer that. She handles the pledges. Yes, so I'm going to let her address that as best we can.
We have approximately 70 people that we have heard nothing from. We have to assume those people are not making us a pledge. If we did hear from those people, then we would have a different number that we were dealing with. They've been contacted via phone, via email, via text, and we do just have about 70 people out of 200 and some pledge units that were sent out that we just have not heard anything from.
When we first made their, or go ahead.
Is this multi-year silence or one-year silence?
This is based on the last, based on 25 and 24. We're assuming if they haven't done in either of those 2 years, we probably won't hear from them. But basically, we're going off folks that we had expected to hear from because we did hear something from them in 24 and haven't yet for this year.
When we started this approximately 3 years ago, we had a over-ambitious expectation of our income because we were including a lot of people that had, fallen off, moved away, or whatever, and we were like, oh, this much is coming in, and we were consistently showing a shortfall in that. So that's one of the reasons why we dropped that.
We have been under a process of culling more than we had previously, so we do have a bunch of members that, like I said, they moved, like he was saying, they moved, we just haven't heard from them in a while. We purposely took those off right away so that we weren't, counting on people that we knew we weren't going to hear from. The 70 is people that we really expected to hear something from and just have not.
And they have been, like I said, text and emailed, phone called to find out what the situation is.
Yep. And Gary's some things to follow. And then maybe.
The 46,000 from the CIC, the special and general pledges, how much more money do we have left in the fund after giving the 46,000?
Mark, they said there were
36,000.
Okay.
There was 693,000. Sorry. There was 693,000 prior to this, at the end of October.
Okay. Okay, so
The
it'll be-
36 is taken from the 693.
Okay.
Isn't that a part of it? The 36, 36 plus 10, I see, yeah.
Okay. And just a comment is that for the parking lot, 10 years ago, we all put in money for the building, over $2 million, right, for this. So the thing is that maybe we could do something for the parking lot, and everyone pledge a little extra something for that? It's just my
It's
thought.
certainly an idea to consider.
Just a thought.
I think, any of those significant projects, we can think about how we can do fundraising for. Nathan, did you have something you wanted to, did I see somebody else's hand?
No, I was just gesturing.
Okay. Well, as long as you weren't flipping off from the back row there, I'm okay. Never a good sign during a budget proposal, right? Any other questions?
I just
just have a statement. I guess I have a question. So when Sandra brought up about the corpus, are we taking out from that? And we only talked about the amount of money coming in from interest. We do have donations that are coming in that will keep that at least that level, right, or beyond.
We have another $50,000 donation that'll essentially erase what we're pulling out this year.
And is there 60,000 through this?
Yeah, the Spidell one will be transferred over also, 68,000.
So we got 110,000 that's going in.
Yep. Any other questions, comments? Wendy, were there any online? Did you?
Jean was in the office doing that, so I think she's got that.
Let me double check here.
Any other questions from you folks?
If you come up with them, hopefully you know who we are and you can get a hold of us. I think the real important thing right now too is to remind you again to make sure your email is correct to the office for voting. I know I emailed a couple people this week and that was not what was in realm, so I don't know if that's, so be sure your email is correct.
So basically the slides that were shown today, are those available for people to access in some way if they wanted to refer back?
I don't know if they are on the website or not.
If somebody wanted to refer back to some of the information today, is there a way that they can check that online or something that?
The budget proposal on the spreadsheet and what have you is online, available with the governing documents. Yep.
Like the PowerPoint slides?
I don't think the PowerPoint is on the website.
We can certainly do that this afternoon. Yep.
Are we live streaming now?
Yes.
We are.
It will be on YouTube.
Yeah, you can
It
go.
will be on YouTube, but we can put
Right.
it there for you to look at outside of YouTube too. Priscilla had a question about capital gains be transferred to some principal. I think we've already answered that one. And the numbers will be ready for the town hall, yes. Let's see. And Jean comments that using one-time funding to support operating costs is a slippery slope and could result in budget shortfalls in future years, especially if there's a stock market bubble. Yes, very much so, which is one of the reasons why we are not suggesting that past this year with this conversation. We're just talking about that. So let's
Trying to be as fluid as possible.
try.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the economic situation out there is fluid, so we have to be fluid in response to it, so.
And I want to say to Al and Christine, they did a great job on the pledge drive. And I feel hindsight, I should have given them all the numbers that were generated at the budget summit. So those could have been brought to people's attention right away to say, hey, this is what we'd like to fund. So we'd like your pledge.
And in a perfect world, we would have known of our budget shortfalls before they started as well.
This is true.
But I wasn't in charge of the timeline there, so that did not happen, unfortunately.
Did you want to explain the 15K that we had to assume from,
Tax shortfall?
yeah, the shortfall? It was the adjustment to the,
Oh, the insurance thing?
yeah, there was 15,000 mistake on
The payroll tax.
Payroll tax.
You want to do that one, Karen?
No, I don't do that because Jean was the one that would be good. No, because Jean deals with the bookkeeper. It all had to do with the bookkeeper.
So
And so one
Right, so
bookkeeper
with
to
the-
another, and it also from one minister to another, also. So it, anyway,
the payroll tax we were using for Oscar
was different than what we needed to use for
needed to
AJ.
do in the future. That's where we reconciled that, so,
Thank goodness for bookkeepers.
right?
It seems to me that what I've read in here is that the salary for our current minister will be the same for our new minister. Is that right? 80,000?
Well, the midpoint we're paying AJ, right, is different than the midpoint there, but it is reflected in our budget as you look through the lines. So it's not separated out on the different lines. It's a sort of ministerial salary, but it is reflected for the time they will be here, that our anticipated midpoint is rolled into that. But it's, you don't see two lines on there about what we're paying AJ and what we're paying you.
And also, the midpoint changes year to year. It goes up with hopefully with inflation. So the midpoint that AJ was hired at is a lower number than the midpoint at which we will hire the new minister.
I just wanted to make a comment too. I'm assuming, I should have looked it up and I didn't, but the minister's salary is in two categories due to IRS regulations. There's their salary and then there's a housing allowance. So their total compensation is the combination of that.
And it is a modest increase, but it's not astronomical. Like everything, it just climbs. Any other questions, thoughts, comments? Didn't see anything else. Okay, and I think that's all from online. So with that, Floyd, would you like to close us out?
Our closing words are from Lindsay Bates. With faith in the creative powers of life, with hope for the future of life in this world, with love for all others who share this life with us, let us go forward together in peace. Our meeting has ended. Let our service begin. Thank you all. We are adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.